I learned that up, it's almost 80 degrees yesterday. A week ago, it was 20 degrees. You never quite know what to expect, but I'm grateful for warmer weather these days. It's really nice. All right. So today's message is going to be titled "The Power of Why." It's interesting about human beings. We tend to think of ourselves as very rational people, right? We live in Western society. We're a scientific society, right? We tend to think that we look at the world and we just observe facts. We just observe reality. We think of the world as kind of a lifeless world of objects that we're just looking at. Does anyone relate to that? Right? We're like a scientific observer, just going out into the world and observing things and collecting facts and making rational decisions. But one thing I learned, I thought was very interesting. There's no such thing as purposeless observation. If you think about a scientist is trying to observe the facts with zero bias, right? That's kind of the goal of being a scientist. But the nature of human beings, we are incapable of being unbiased. Even like on the most fundamental level, even when we're looking at things, we don't observe meaningless objects. We actually, everything we observe, even from a neurological, psychological, scientific perspective, we observe things with purposes. So your brain doesn't think if you see a cup, actually, at the fundamental level, your brain doesn't see container for carrying, round cylinder container. At the most basic level, your brain sees container to give me hydration. So the I don't know if I'm exactly making the point, but the point is that actually by definition that it's an irrefutable fact that everything is imbued with purpose. Everything has meaning. And as human beings, we are meaning seekers. Everything we do, we are always seeking for a purpose, seeking for a meaning. Whether you are aware of it, whether you realize it or not, even at a subconscious level or an unconscious level, we are all seeking for meaning every single moment. So today's message, the power of why, I hope to highlight the importance of pursuing that greater meaning and pursuing that greater purpose. There's a quote from scripture. Dr. Jung, several years ago, he used to always quote this scripture. He said, "Without a vision, the people perish. Without a vision, the people perish." If you think about how we live our lives, some of us are filled with a sense of purpose. Some of us have a big why. Some of us have a big something we're trying to accomplish. Many of us, we know we're looking for something. We know we're trying to find meaning, but we're not really focusing on it. It's like being without a vision. If you just get up in the morning and you're not quite sure what to expect today, you're not quite sure what you want to accomplish, you're not quite sure what you hope for, you have no clear vision, no clear purpose, or no clear why to motivate you, then how do you feel if you live that kind of day? How do you think? You feel lethargic, you feel lazy, you check your watch, it's already 2 p.m. Like, oh wow, what happened in the morning? And then you barely roll out of bed and you pour yourself a bowl of cereal and then you check your phone, you scroll a little bit more and a little bit more, and then, oh, it's already 3 o'clock, right? Those kinds of days when we don't focus on our why, when we don't focus on our vision, we perish. We lose something that's so important to us, and we feel like something is missing. And how about as a people, as a community, if we are just going about the routine, just doing what we normally do, even if I speak about us specifically, our church community, if we don't think about our goal, if we don't think about our vision, if we don't think about our purpose, how would it feel to be a part of that kind of community? How would it feel to be a part of that kind of church? If you show up to church and it's like, oh, I guess we're here to do something, but I'm not quite sure. But I guess, at least we're hanging out together and we have good friendships, which is really great. But if we don't have a clear sense of what we want to accomplish, if we don't have a vision of what we feel God is calling us to do, then we can easily end up, even our communal feeling can feel very like lethargic, very wishy-washy, very like kind of floating in space. So that was part of the motivation behind what we did yesterday, the Own Our Future Summit, which it was for all of our younger people. We invited a few of our elders to be there as kind of the voice of wisdom if we're a little too oblivious to certain things. But yeah, that was our purpose yesterday, was to gather as kind of a younger generation of our community, and especially many people who have already been volunteering or stepping up in certain ways, taking leadership in certain ways. And yeah, the goal was to try to clarify and discuss what is our vision, what is our hope, what is our future, and what do we want to create together. And I want to show a video. We watched this yesterday, but it highlights the power of a vision and also the power of having a strong why. So let's watch.
Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in the pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded? Gee, um, there's something on the plate. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations, some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it. When you go with a person value proposition or proprietary process or a USP, but very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont Langley. And back in the early 20th century, the pursuit of powered manned flight was like the dot-com of the day. Everybody was trying it. And Samuel Pierpont Langley had what we assume to be the recipe for success. I mean, even now, you ask people, why did your product or why did your company fail? And people always give you the same permutation of the same three things. Undercapitalized, the wrong people, bad market conditions. It's always the same three things. So let's explore that. Samuel Pierpont Langley was given $50,000 by the War Department to figure out this flying machine. Money was no problem. He held a seat at Harvard and worked at the Smithsonian and was extremely well connected. He knew all the big minds of the day.
He hired the best minds money could find, and the market conditions were fantastic. The New York Times followed him around everywhere, and everyone was rooting for Langley. And how come we've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? A few hundred miles away in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They had none of what we consider to be the recipe for success. They had no money. They paid for their dream with the proceeds from their bicycle shop. Not a single person on the Wright brothers' team had a college education, not even Orville or Wilbur. And the New York Times followed them around nowhere. The difference was Orville and Wilbur were driven by a cause, by a purpose, by a belief. They believed that if they could figure out this flying machine, it'll change the course of the world. Samuel Pierpont Langley was different. He wanted to be rich and he wanted to be famous. He was in pursuit of the result. He was in pursuit of the riches. And lo and behold, look what happened. The people who believed in the Wright brothers' dream worked with them with blood and sweat and tears. The others just worked for the paycheck. And they tell stories of how every time the Wright brothers went out, they would have to take 5 sets of parts because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for supper. And eventually, on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers took flight.
All right. He's talking about the power of having a why, right? A purpose that drives not what you do, not how you're special or better than others, but what's the reason? What's the why? So when I was watching this video, I was thinking about who do I know who has the biggest why? And also I was thinking about why did we all gather here, you know? There's lots of other churches and other communities with probably nicer buildings and better equipment and better quality Sunday service and maybe even more friendly or more nice than some of us. But what is it that called us? Especially, I know many of you in this room, you know, when you joined this movement, you were probably, you know, you were expecting not to live rich, but you were expecting to live almost like a monk, like to give up all your wealth. And, you know, maybe you lived in a really humble church center with like the ceiling falling down and all kinds of things, right? I think if we look back on how God called us to be here, to be a part of this community and this movement, I think we can identify we were called because we felt called by the great sense of purpose, the great why that also motivated our founders, that motivated True Father and True Mother. So we have kind of a slogan. We say, God's dream, one family. There could be many ways to express it, but this is one very simple way to express what is it? What was this why? What was this purpose, this motivation that called Sun Myung Moon from such a humble background, and our true mother Hak Jahan from such a humble background, right? Growing up in a war-torn country, in the midst of poverty where their countrymen don't even have enough to eat. But from such humble backgrounds, they felt this great calling, this great purpose, this great motivation to do something that would change the world, that would affect millions and millions of lives, that would lead us to be seated exactly where we are, to be called in the ways that we have been called. And I believe it is this dream, this purpose, this sense that God, our Creator, had a dream for all humankind, for us to experience life as one family, beyond all divisions of race or culture or religion, beyond all the turmoil that exists in our own hearts. But God is calling us to experience the true love that comes from being part of a true family. So as I was, watching that video, I felt really so grateful for our true parents and for the vision that they have communicated to us. And I believe that vision that spark that has caught in our own hearts, and I know certainly in my heart. So yesterday in our summit, Own Our Future Summit, uh, actually maybe before that, about a month and a half ago, I I gathered together a few of our younger leaders. What I had been feeling is that we all have a reason to be here. I think we all, even if we never say it, even if we never verbalize it, kind of subconsciously, we feel a common purpose, a common vision. Perhaps we can say it's, as simple as God's dream, one family. But I felt the need to articulate, to actually come up with a way to express what is our mission or what is our vision, what is our purpose. So yeah, a few of us, I don't know, I was expecting it went very smoothly. In like an hour and a half, we were brainstorming and we ended up with a sentence that you could call it a mission statement or a purpose statement, or I don't know exactly what you want to call it, but I call it a mission statement to kind of sum up who we are and what we're about and what is our purpose as a community. So you can read with me. DFW Family Church is Heavenly Parents' home, where we deepen our identity as filial divine children, flourish as true families, and serve with love. True love, yeah. There's a little hidden true. Serve with love. So for me, my experience with our team, my experience also yesterday in the summit, I felt some kind of resonance that, it's there could be other ways to express it. There could be better ways to express it, but I felt like this is a good way to express who we are, what we're about, what is our mission, and a little bit, what is our vision? What are we trying to accomplish? So I want to just kind of go into each point just a little bit. And as I'm sharing this, I don't want to um my hope is not to kind of mandate or like, okay guys, you have to agree with this, or you have to follow this, or you have to accept it. But I hope that you might find also similar resonance, that that this could be how we would describe who we are, what we're about, and what is our mission. So the first point, DFW Family Church is Heavenly Parents' home. So actually, even before going into this, I was, even before showing the mission statement, I was thinking about yesterday, or yesterday when I was presenting this, I wanted to describe without, a nice sentence, but just kind of closing my eyes and imagine what I see as my hope for our community. So if you could close your eyes with me and just visualize, for yourself, you can think about what would you love to see in the DFW Family Church? So for me, when I think about what would I like to see, what is the ideal community? What's the vision? I see so many people gathering together. I see like this church building being a place where we gather because we feel we belong, where we feel I'm loved, and where we feel this is where we can gather as family. Where, every week when we come together, there's a sense of excitement, the sense of like seeing my good friends who, I've been missing them all week. And not just in the church building, but any chance that we have to gather together as community, even going to someone's house or meeting up at the park or whatever it might be. And I see families. I see a lot of kids running around and, running to their moms and dads and hugging their legs and then running off with their friends and exploring under the trees and running upstairs to the kids' room. And I can see just a place where families feel safe with their children and where their kids feel like there's so many people who are watching over me, who are protecting me and loving me. And I see a place where it's like, yeah, it's like a beacon of hope that just naturally, like these kind of good vibrations is kind of like branching out to our neighbors, to our city, to our town, to our broader community where we gather, where the mayor, every time the mayor comes to visit, he feels, oh wow, there's something so special whenever I come here, that kind of environment. You can open your eyes. I hope that each one of us, you could also imagine for yourself what what would you like to see? What would you like to experience as a part of this church community? There you go. Community garden feeding a lot of people. Hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we can all have our own unique vision, and when we combine it all, we'll have just the most beautiful, amazing community ever. So anyway, we came up with this mission statement as an attempt to describe, what we are, what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So I want to kind of walk through each point. So first of all, DFW Family Church is Heavenly Parents' home. So most of all, this is kind of like the most fundamental value that not just the physical church, but the church in terms of the community of believers, the community of friends, that God could feel so at home, that God could feel like God sees his love and his nature being expressed, that God would feel so happy to be here. All right, we know that for all human history, God has been looking for a home. God has been looking for a people and looking for his children. And then when we were kind of going through each of these points, we found that kind of each of them resonates with one of the three great blessings, right? To be fruitful, to multiply, to have dominion. So this first point, to deepen our identity as filial divine children. So this community, this church can be a place where each of us as individuals, we're coming into a deeper relationship with God, with Heavenly Parent, where we really feel in our bones, I'm a child of God. I'm loved by God. I'm divine, right? I'm created in God's image. But also where we're discovering ourselves as filial children, where we're discovering what kind of relationship should I have to God? What does it mean to be a child of God is not only receiving love, but also desiring to give back to God out of my gratitude to express my love to God and to make God's hopes and desires as my own hopes and desires. So this church community can be a place where we're going deeper and deeper into that identity of who we truly are. And next, to flourish as true families. Or in our own families, right? Whether if you have your own, right? If you're already married, you have a spouse, you have your own children, or for those who are on their journey towards their own future family, that it can be a place where our families really bond and grow closer together, where our families and our relationships are nourished, and also where we experience being a family beyond blood, right? Where we can really feel like my brothers and sisters are here. I really love Caleb. He somehow he learned every woman is auntie. He calls everyone auntie. Even we went to the park the other day, and there's just a couple there with their kids. We've never seen them before, but he says auntie. He learned that because he sees so many aunties and uncles at church, and he knows what it feels like to be loved and to be taken care of by people who he's not physically related to. So that, this community can be where we really flourish as families. And then the final point, to serve with love in everything that we do, when we serve each other, and also that our community can be of service to our broader society, right? To the city of Irving, the city of Dallas, and the whole metroplex, right? To the city of Texas, where we are making a difference, where we are, through our values, through our ideals, we are actually changing society. We're actually, right, to be a positive influence on society and to serve society. So then I was thinking about, of all the things that we're already doing, are we achieving this mission, or, how are we doing? And I realized, everything that we do in our community, I believe, could fit into, these three categories. So I want to just kind of go through with you how I see it. So the first point, to deepen our identity as filial divine children. Hopefully, our experience every Sunday through worship, through prayer, through, God's word. Hopefully our Sunday service can be a place where we are growing in our own individual relationship to God. And, we can deepen our sense of being God's child. Also, our prayer vigils, right? When we pray, whether you come at 10 p.m. or whether you visit the Chunchimon in your lunch break, whenever we have that space, but through our prayer also, we're growing closer to Heavenly Parent. And also we have different activities through witnessing, through divine principle study, through our membership class and our intro program, all the different ways that we can invite someone who's unfamiliar to our teachings, that they can begin their journey of growing in their knowledge of God's word. And through that knowledge of God's word, they're growing their sense of their identity as God's child. And also our Chumbo programs that we have maybe once or twice a year. And next, flourish as true families. So even right now, we have Sunday school going on. We also really invested a lot into our Songhua, our youth program. We have family festivals. We have young adult hangouts. We have, blessing prep and support for our single people as they are preparing for and on their journey to receiving the blessing. We have community meetings. We have sports and gatherings. Anyways, all the different ways that we are nourishing our families and that we are bonding as a bigger family. And finally, to serve with love. How are we serving each other, and how are we serving our society? We do different programs like Peace Starts With Me, like our interfaith program that's coming up in 2 weeks. We're actually, sometimes we take for granted how much our ideals and perspective actually is of service to our community. We're kind of unique in our vision of how we can work together, beyond religion, involving all religions and faith, but having an ideal that goes beyond religion. And we have so much to give, so much to be of service to our society. We also are serving in our community through like our church cleanups. I put the Own Our Future campaign through our offering and tithe. We're also serving our community garden, as Lola brought up. And I also put here our family festivals, which, maybe like we saw at our fall festival, sometimes our Christmas parties and our Parents' Day festival, when we make a extra effort to invite new friends. and whether or not they continue to join our fellowship, but they really feel like they've gained something. There's this Indian family that we met a year and a half ago who came to our fall festival, and they always come to our next family festival because, regardless of their faith or belief, but they can feel like the family environment is so rich here and that it's actually helped them to grow together as a family. And so one final point, our theme yesterday was Own Our Future. I've been talking about this theme for a while. And as much as we have lofty goals and lofty ideals, and those are important, but it also takes really practical, you got to be down to earth. You got to work in the real world. And so as a church, in the past year and a half or maybe 1 year, especially, we've really been putting a lot of investment into our health, our financial and more external health, even taking care of our property. In 2025, maybe you saw our financial report, but we were able to our net income from our rentals, which is a new project, was almost $40,000. So we have projects like that. We have the Own Our Future campaign where we're trying to pay down our mortgage. We're trying to really make an investment for our next generations. Anyways, these are the more kind of practical ways that we are also trying to create the environment to fulfill our vision and mission. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's really all about this dream, this vision, and this purpose that, God inspired in the heart of our true Father and the heart of our true Mother. And I think as a community, the joy that we can experience is actually connected to how much we are fulfilling that purpose. First of all, how much we feel connected to that purpose, and then how much we are growing and taking steps closer and closer to that purpose. So for me, in my own individual life, I'm sure in all of our individual lives, we want to feel a sense of like you wake up in the morning and you're excited about what the day will hold, and you're excited about, what you can accomplish and what you can experience. That excitement is really connected to your vision of what you want to accomplish, of what also you feel called to do. And so our own community, right? We don't have, we could be living in the most humble environment, right? Right? True Father started his ministry as a refugee, making a shack with mud walls and a cardboard roof. But I'm sure that when the members gathered in that humble, the most humble church you could imagine, but they felt a great sense of hope, a great sense of joy, because they saw and they felt and they were striving for a great vision. So in our own individual lives, but also in our community life, the more that we feel that sense of calling and that sense of motivation and that sense of vision, that sense of purpose, actually the more joy that we can experience, the more meaning that we can experience. And I believe that, deep in our hearts, we all have a longing for this dream. I believe we're all here because we have felt connected to that dream, to that vision. And so I hope that our community, we can really keep in mind what is our vision and what we want to accomplish and what we want to experience together. Yesterday in our summit, we spent a lot of time. Anyways, I won't go through everything we did, but we were really brainstorming, like, what do we want to experience and how could we make that happen? So, not just for the summit, but for our entire community, really, the sky's the limit in terms of what we can experience. But my hope is that we can keep in mind, we can use this mission statement as an anchor to remind ourselves of what our vision is, of what our mission is, of what we want to experience, right? Can I come to church next Sunday and be so excited to feel I'm coming to God's home? Can I come next Sunday and feel so excited? Oh, I can, I really want to go deeper into my relationship, into my identity as God's child. I want to come and I want to serve with love. I want to serve my brothers and sisters with love, right? I hope we can keep in mind that vision, and we can really keep in mind that ultimate vision, God's dream of one family. And the more that we deepen our connection to that vision, the more that we deepen our connection to that why, to that purpose, the more joy that we can experience. Even externally, everything can be the same. Even externally, we can have the most humble kind of circumstances, but the joy and the meaning will be the greatest the more we connect to God's vision and God's dream. That's what I wanted to share today. Please join me in prayer. Our loving Heavenly Parent, true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind, we're so grateful that we can gather together as family. We can gather together as a community, Heavenly Parent. We're so blessed to be a part of each other's lives. I really feel so blessed to know each person in this room and to get to know them a little bit more day by day, week by week, month by month, God. We're so, so grateful, God, that we have the greatest vision, the greatest purpose, Heavenly Parent. I know each of us, we are called to be a part of this community and this movement because we have been touched by that great vision that you inspired in our true parents and that you are fulfilling and manifesting and substantiating through our true parents. You are making your vision, you are making your dream real, Heavenly Parent. And we are here because we feel called to be a part of making that dream a reality, of making that world of peace and joy and love a reality, making that world of loving families a reality, Heavenly Parent. Your dream is not a world where people follow the right church and follow the right faith practice. It's nothing like that, Heavenly Parent. Your dream is a world where people grow up in families with parents who love them, in communities that take care of them. And that is your dream, Heavenly Parent. We're longing to live in that world, Heavenly Parent. We're longing through our faith, through our community, God, to take a step closer to your dream, to that world that you're longing for, Heavenly Parent. And we're so excited, Heavenly Parent, that every day and every week we have a chance to further that dream and further that vision, Heavenly Parent. And we have brothers and sisters to share in that dream, to share in that hope together. That when we see each other, we don't just see a person who's living their lives, but we see a brother and a sister who has received the same calling, the same inspiration, who holds on to the same ideals, and who is experiencing the same love that we are experiencing, Heavenly Parent. Let us really hold on to that dream in our hearts, Heavenly Parent. I know our true mother right now, she's again, as our true parents have so many times in their lives, but she is again in the most miserable and the most humble and the most difficult circumstances, Heavenly Parent. But I know when I see our true mother, I don't see someone who's suffering. I don't see someone who's a victim. I don't see someone who's defeated. But I see someone who holds the deepest dream in her heart, Heavenly Parent, who holds the deepest hope in her heart, Heavenly Parent, and who has never given up and doesn't let anything hold her back from doing all that she can to pursue that dream, Heavenly Parent. Even in 2019, in her late 70s, with so many physical challenges, Heavenly Parent. But she traveled the world. She pushed herself to her physical limitations because she was holding onto that dream, and she visited every single continent to bless your children, Heavenly Parent, because she knew this is a step to make that dream more closer to you, to reality, Heavenly Parent. We're so inspired by our true mother. We're so inspired by our true father. Not for what they teach, but how they've lived their lives, dedicated to your dream, and filled with joy, not doing anything begrudgingly or dragging their feet or complaining, but they lived their life always with joy in their heart and always with gratitude in their heart because they held on to that dream. I pray that we can really follow in their footsteps as well. We can really be dreamers. We can be hopeful people, God. We can inspire one another. We can be excited for one another's victories and achievements, Heavenly Parent. We're so grateful for our families. We're so grateful for your love. We want to do all that we can to further your dream, Heavenly Parent. I want to offer this prayer in gratitude and attendance to Holy Mother Han. I pray in my name, Jinil Fleischman of the Blessed Family. Aju. Okay, thank you, everyone.